it was language. It was language that did it for me.
You mentioned that your parents are from St. Lucia, came to the UK from St. Lucia, and English was not your first language.
Well, I mean, I was talking earlier about mythologizing your own life, and of course, it's really, when you talk a lot about yourself, it's really easy to start mythologizing bits. So I'm careful about this, but the fact is, my parents, by the time I came along, had already had 4 kids. I was number 5. And my brother is 5 years older than me, and I have 3 sisters in between me and him. So we're quite close in age. He was clearly struggling at school, and at the age of 3, my mum decided to stop speaking Creole, which is St. Lucian Creole, in the house. Now, I have no recollection of that moment. I'm 3 already, and my sisters are not quiet people. They like a chat. My brother's very quiet. No wonder, he couldn't get a word in edgeways. But I came along and I thought, I'm joining in and getting involved. So my language was quite developed by the time I got to school, certainly. I could read and write because those horrible sisters would make me do school with them. So I could do all that. But language was interesting. I was very taciturn, and I didn't really work out why until much later. So I'm about 4.5. These are memories I have all my life, but I don't know what they're about. And I'm following my mum around the house and asking her to tell me how you say table in Creole. Don't ask me, she would say. And I'd go, how do you say fridge in Creole, Mum? Don't ask me. And then eventually, how do you say sausages in Creole? And she'd go, don't ask me. And because of the reaction, I just stop and I never, ever ask her again. And I sort of forget about it. And then I'm in school about a year later, my first year of school. And I'm asked what we had for Sunday lunch. And all these kids are Irish. This is Willesden Green in the late 60s. Everybody in the class is Irish. And the only black kid there. So I'm quite self-conscious in some ways. But, you know, they're asking me an innocuous question. What did you have for Sunday lunch? Rice and peas, I say. Whole class erupts. Like, we know what rice and peas is now, but they didn't know what I was talking about. Rice and peas. And then I said, well, then we had chicken and we had salad with lettuce, tomato, and cucumber. I didn't know what cucumber was. It just fell out of my mouth. Cucumber, which is obviously the Creole word for cucumber. And I say this, and I wrote a little sort of spoken word thing about it. I never made that mistake again. So language, I got obsessed with language and with English in particular, with how people spoke it, and hearing the accented English I heard in my house, the accented English I heard at school with the Irish kids. I saw a James Bond film last night. What? I said I saw a James Bond film last night, it was great. Morris, you say you saw a James Bond film? It's not a film. And then I'd sit there, this is about 6 years old, going F-I-L-M, film. So I started to listen to the radio, and I started imitating people from the radio. I listened to a program called Weekend World, which only people of a certain age would know. And I would sit there imitating the guests. Well, the fiscal policy in Scotland, of course, needs the procurator fiscal to join in. They'd be having these swivel chairs. And my mum worked at McVitie's, and she had a plastic reel, blue plastic reel that she gave me just to roll about. But I'd sit on that, and that'd be my swivel chair. So, Prime Minister, what do you really think about what's happening in the situation? And I'm a weird kid. But it was language. It was language that did it for me. And obviously imitating people, but just being attuned to language and what it meant. And also understanding the power of it. And when you don't have it, or when you don't have grasp of it, there's a lot of vulnerability, especially when you're facing authority in any way. And I think I learned in my teenage years to speak up, but that was quite miraculous. And most kids who grew up like me end up never bringing that part of them out, because language is what allows you the confidence to stand up in front of people. If I have maybe nothing to say or only a little bit to say, my language can carry me through. If I've got tons to say but I don't have the language, that's very frustrating. I know that feeling. Sort of the terrible twos feeling, or the teenage feeling, when you've got so much going on but so little means to articulate it. So yeah, language sort of saved me, really.
I read that you and school did not have a happy time together. You played truant, and then you were working in as a chef in the Royal Free Hospital.
Yes.
But you ended up at Lambda.
Yeah.
Tell us how that path works.
Okay, I'll try and be brief. Playing truant is a bad thing to do. Go to school. Unless there's a really good library next door. No, I got lucky in that school didn't treat me very well. I was part of that group of African Caribbean kids who were labelled officially ESN, educationally subnormal. We hadn't said anything or done anything, but we were classed in that way. In fact, the Irish kids were in the same bucket as we were, any immigrant kids. There's a BBC documentary called Subnormal. Don't take my word for it, check that out. So my first day of school was horrendous, and it was clear to me that they didn't think much of me. And I was only 4.5, but I knew already that they didn't have much time for me. And I sat with that until I was 13, and somebody went, well, Pat, you don't even need to go to school, you just do the register and you just off out of it. Brilliant. So I did that. Joseph, yes, sir. And then I just left the school. And I did that for the last 2 years of school till I left, 15. But I got lucky in 2 ways. One is I had a deep curiosity about the world, and I loved reading. So I would go to Willesden Green Library and I would hide in the reference section. I'd put my school blazer in my satchel, and I'd just sit with this kid smiling at me like, this is a genius idea. I'm going to do that too. Don't do it. I got lucky. But the thing is, I read so much, and I read so avidly, and it was a bad education in many ways, but good in that it told me that you've got a brain in there, and you can take in information and actually use it. And I'd sort of write little short stories and things based on what I read. And I read everything. I read Guy de Maupassant in translation, Oscar Wilde short stories, which have stayed with me to this day. Oh, those short stories are so beautiful. And then I also read a lot of Mills and Boon, which is like, lots of ladies laughing at that one. It's romantic fiction for discerning ladies and 13-year-old lonely boys. And I honestly feel like it was what I needed. I needed to be able to just sort of roam and see and expand my world, which is what I did. Yeah.
But you ended up at Lambda.
Now, Lambda was a thing that came about through accident. I really admired a guy called Colin Leonce, who wanted to join, at 14, he wanted to join the National Youth Theatre. And I said, yeah, okay. I didn't know what any of the words he said meant, but it was Colin. I thought, yeah, I'll do that as well. He was very good at imitating Lenny Henry doing David Bellamy. This ages us. There's like half of us understood that reference. And I went for that audition, but he pulled out, and I was left to audition for it. So I remember getting the history teacher, I didn't do drama, of course I didn't, why would I, gave me A Merchant of Venice. And I opened it up at home, and I read it out loud, and it was life-changing because I'd never heard Shakespeare, I'd never seen a play, I'd never been to the theatre, I'd never seen it on television as far as I know. I think there was a Hamlet advert, and people were like, oh, Hamlet, it's very funny, and like, I didn't know what they were referring to. And there was an advert for Richard, my horse, my kingdom for a horse. I think there was that. People said it was Shakespeare. I didn't know what it was. So I knew it was a play, so I opened it up and I started reading. And those words in my mouth were transformative. That's why I'm a great advocate for it. But again, I did the audition. I was too shy, way too shy to have gone. He asked me, why do you want to join the National Youth Theatre? And I literally looked on the ground and went, because I like meeting people. And it was true, but I hadn't learned the trick of looking people in the eye, you see. Because where I came from, that's a provocation. It's a provocation. And it's true, and I've worked with kids in that area, and it's true, you've got to look people in the eye in this world, because otherwise they're suspicious. They don't know what you're thinking. Whereas if you might be the most honest kid in the world, but you're like with a hood and with your cap and you're going, well, I want to be an engineer. Well, of course you could do all those things, but the world works like this, unfortunately, not like this. Why am I waffling on about that? These words changed my way of thinking of myself too. I could be articulate. And then 4 years later, drifting, being a chef, I thought I'd try it one more time. and that was the end of it. I went to a youth theatre when we used to pay for youth theatres. The Inner London Education Authority would pay for youth theatres, and I met my first middle-class people there. And you're all very nice. I had heard bad things about you, but it wasn't true. And that was, to me, it was transformative. And then I went to Lambda about a year or so later.
To continue watching this video, click the link in the top left or in the description below. Or visit iai.tv for more debates and talks from the world's leading thinkers on today's biggest ideas.